Picture this: an organization that has predicted the end of the world over a dozen times, built a mansion for dead biblical characters, secretly joined the United Nations while calling it Satan's beast, and maintains a database of over 23,000 alleged child abusers. This isn't science fiction. This is the hidden reality of Jehovah's Witnesses, one of the world's most recognizable religious groups. For 150 years, the Watchtower organization has operated as a prophecy machine that never stops failing. Yet millions continue to follow their predictions, sacrifice their futures, and tear apart their families based on teachings that have been proven wrong again and again. Today, we're exposing the shocking secrets that even longtime critics might find hard to believe. Let's start with a prophecy that launched a century of deception. In 1914, founder Charles Russell confidently proclaimed that this year would bring the complete overthrow of all earthly governments and the beginning of paradise on earth. His publications, called Studies in the Scriptures, were so certain of this timeline that Russell declared his books were more important than reading the Bible alone. When World War I started instead of paradise, did they admit their mistake? Absolutely not. They performed one of the most audacious cover-ups in religious history, retroactively claiming that Jesus had begun ruling invisibly in heaven. This wasn't what they originally taught at all. Previously, they claimed Jesus had been ruling since 1874. But the 1914 failure was just the beginning. In the 1920s, leader Joseph Rutherford became so convinced that biblical patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would be resurrected in 1925 that he spent $25,000 during the Great Depression to build them a mansion. Called Beth Sarim, meaning House of the Princes, this luxury property in San Diego was equipped with servants and expensive cars, all waiting for the arrival of these ancient figures. Rutherford was so confident in this prophecy that he had the deed legally transferred to the patriarchs. When 1925 came and went with no resurrections, guess who moved into the mansion? Rutherford himself, living in luxury while his followers struggled through economic hardship. The most devastating prediction came decades later. From 1966 to 1975, Watchtower literature heavily promoted 1975 as marking 6,000 years of human existence and the beginning of the end. The psychological impact was catastrophic. Thousands of members sold their homes, cashed in life insurance policies, quit stable jobs, and avoided higher education because the end was supposedly so close. Young people were told they would never grow old in the current system. Parents were advised not to worry about their children's futures because Armageddon would arrive before they reached adulthood. When 1975 passed without incident, the organization's response was chilling. Instead of taking responsibility, they blamed the victims. Official publications claimed that followers had read too much into their statements and had been overeager about the timing. This despite published quotes in their own literature stating definitively that 1975 would mark the end. The human cost was immense. Marriages collapsed, families were destroyed financially, and countless individuals found themselves unprepared for futures they were told would never come. Perhaps most telling is how they handled Jesus' prophecy about the generation that would see the end times. This doctrine has been redefined at least 6 times, as each interpretation failed. The current explanation, called the overlapping generation doctrine, is so convoluted it defies basic logic. According to their latest teaching, the generation includes not just people who were alive in 1914, but also people who knew people who were alive in 1914. This allows the prophecy to extend indefinitely, a transparent example of moving the goalposts when reality doesn't match predictions. While preaching about Satan's influence on world organizations, the Watchtower was secretly participating in the very system they condemned. For nearly 10 years, from 1992 to 2001, they maintained membership as a non-governmental organization with the United Nations, an institution, they taught, was the scarlet-colored wild beast of revelation controlled by Satan. The hypocrisy runs deeper than mere membership. Their UN application required agreeing to share the ideals of the UN Charter and support the work of the United Nations. These are the exact activities they condemned as spiritual adultery when performed by other religious groups. In 1991, the same year they applied for UN membership, their publications criticized Catholic organizations for having 24 groups represented at the UN as NGOs. During their secret UN partnership, their Awake magazine began featuring positive articles about UN humanitarian efforts, a dramatic shift from their typically critical stance. They used UN resources and libraries, while publicly teaching followers that any support of the United Nations was satanic. The scandal only came to light when a British newspaper investigated their connection. Within 2 days of media exposure, they withdrew their membership, claiming they didn't understand the requirements despite renewing annually for nearly a decade. The organization's handling of child abuse represents perhaps their most damning scandal. The Australian Royal Commission revealed that Jehovah's Witnesses maintain a secret database containing records of 23,720 alleged child abusers spanning decades. More shocking still, they reported 0 of these cases to police. Their justification centers on the two-witness rule, a policy requiring a second witness to abuse before congregational action is taken. Since child abuse typically occurs in private, this creates an impossible standard that systematically protects predators. In Australia alone, they documented 1,006 alleged perpetrators with over 1,800 victims since 1950, with not a single police report filed. Court cases worldwide reveal a pattern of institutional protection for abusers. In Montana, a jury awarded $35 million to an abuse survivor after finding the organization negligent in protecting a known predator. Pennsylvania authorities arrested 17 Jehovah's Witnesses members following a grand jury investigation into systemic abuse. In Hawaii, a historic $40 million settlement was awarded to a childhood abuse victim. Internal documents show elders are instructed not to warn parents about known abusers in congregations. In one shocking case, convicted pedophile elder Jonathan Rose was allowed to participate in meetings interrogating children he had molested after serving only 9 months in prison. The organization's chief legal counsel has been personally fined over $154,000 for courtroom deception, with judges citing reckless disregard for truth. While teaching members to avoid tobacco and military connections, the Watchtower's investment portfolios told a different story. Their investment trust held substantial stock in Philip Morris Tobacco Company and defense contractors including Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman. Members faced disfellowshipping for working in a store tobacco counter, but the organization profits from tobacco investments without consequence. The scale of their wealth is staggering. Brooklyn property sales between 2013 and 2017 generated over $1 billion, with a single building selling for $375 million. These proceeds disappear into undisclosed investment activities according to IRS forms, while donations from members continue despite zero financial transparency. The corporate structure includes dozens of subsidiary corporations designed to shield assets and liability. Members donate billions annually with no public accounting of how funds are used, creating a massive financial empire built on secretive policies that would make multinational corporations envious. In February 2023, something unprecedented happened that sent shockwaves through the organization. Anthony Morris III, a member of the governing body, and one of the 8 men who lead 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide, simply vanished. One day he was there, the next day all his videos and content were scrubbed from their website, as if he never existed. Morris became only the 4th governing body member ever expelled in the organization's history. Within hours of his removal, the organization provided him with 2 houses in North Carolina and what appears to be a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. No explanation was given to members, who had been taught that governing body members were chosen by God and could only be removed by divine intervention. Video evidence emerged of Morris purchasing large quantities of expensive alcohol on Sunday mornings during meeting times, raising serious questions about his conduct. His removal coincided with Pennsylvania child abuse investigations that resulted in multiple arrests of Jehovah's Witnesses members. Morris was known for his hardline positions opposing recent liberal changes to dress codes and behavioral policies. His expulsion suggests major internal power struggles over the organization's direction, with liberalizers apparently seizing control. The years 2023 and 2024 brought changes so dramatic they reversed over a century of strict behavioral control. Beards are now allowed after being prohibited for over 100 years. Monthly time reports, required since the 1920s, have been eliminated. Women can wear pants to meetings and field service. Men no longer require suits and ties at meetings. Simple greetings to disfellowshipped individuals are now permitted after being completely forbidden. Toasting and clinking glasses have become personal decisions rather than forbidden practices. These changes represent a fundamental shift away from the micromanagement that defined Jehovah's Witness identity for generations. The timing coincides with major legal pressures from governments worldwide, suggesting these are damage control measures rather than divine revelations. Norway classified Jehovah's Witnesses as a harmful organization in 2024, removing their religious status and state funding specifically because their shunning practices constitute psychological violence. While later overturned on appeal, the legal precedent terrified leadership into making cosmetic changes while maintaining harmful core practices. Official Jehovah's Witness doctrine teaches a conspiracy theory that would make the most extreme theorists blush. According to their beliefs, Satan the devil controls all world governments, religions, educational institutions, and media. This isn't fringe teaching but core doctrine found throughout their publications. Independent thinking itself is labeled as introduced by Satan. Universities are described as dangerous hotbeds of immorality where Satan promotes evolution and critical thinking. All other Christian denominations are part of Babylon the Great, a satanic world empire of false religion. Religious leaders who claim to be Christian are actually Satan's ministers spreading demonic doctrines. The United Nations is the scarlet-colored wild beast that will first destroy all religions except Jehovah's Witnesses, then turn on them to trigger Armageddon. Current world events are constantly reinterpreted as Satan preparing for this final attack. Most holidays and cultural celebrations have demonic origins and constitute Satan worship. Christmas is described as Satan worship where witches and Satan worshippers still revere December 25th. Halloween is Satan's day when Satanists perform ritual sacrifices. This conspiracy framework creates a worldview where virtually everything outside the organization is controlled by Satan, a belief system that isolates members from normal society and rational thinking. Over 1 million people are currently being shunned by Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide, roughly 10% of active membership. The disfellowshipping system requires complete social isolation for over 30 potential offenses, including disagreeing with organizational teachings, celebrating holidays, or engaging in premarital relationships. Parents must emotionally shun their own children who are disfellowshipped, even if they live at home. The organization explicitly instructs that even a simple hello can be the first step toward friendship, asking whether members want to take that step with someone who is disfellowshipped. Children as young as 12 can be baptized and then subject to adult shunning if they later engage in normal teenage behavior or question teachings. Baptized minors face the same judicial committees and social isolation as adults, creating a system where childhood decisions can result in lifelong family separation. Judicial committees involve extremely intrusive questioning about sexual matters by 3 male elders meeting in private. No lawyers, recording devices, or observers are allowed. Decisions can only be appealed within 7 days to other elders, not external authorities. Perhaps most shocking is their Armageddon doctrine that explicitly condemns billions to death. Official teaching states that only baptized Jehovah's Witnesses will survive the end times. Everyone else, including children and toddlers, will be destroyed by God. Those who rejected their message while alive will not be resurrected, facing permanent annihilation. This belief system exposes children to graphic artwork depicting mass destruction of non-believers and creates deep psychological fear used to maintain membership. The doctrine effectively condemns 99.9% of humanity, including virtually all children worldwide, to death or eternal non-existence. Recent organizational changes have softened some language around this teaching, but the core belief remains unchanged. Only Jehovah's Witnesses will survive the end of the world, a doctrine that breeds superiority complexes and justifies extreme social isolation. The pattern spanning 150 years reveals systematic deception, veiled prophecy, financial hypocrisy, and psychological control that affects millions worldwide. The evidence includes physical proof, like the Beth Sarim Mansion, document trails of UN membership while condemning the organization, court records documenting child abuse cover-ups, financial records showing investment hypocrisy, internal leaks revealing leadership struggles, and government findings classifying their practices as harmful. The Anthony Morris removal, dramatic policy reversals, and ongoing legal crisis suggest an organization in unprecedented turmoil. The contrast between public image and documented reality exposes how authoritarian groups operate behind carefully constructed facades. This isn't just about religious beliefs, but about systematic manipulation affecting millions of people who deserve to know the truth about the organization controlling their lives.